Richard Reed Parry is a composer, multi-instrumentalist, and singer who is currently based in Montreal, Quebec. A member of Arcade Fire and Bell Orchestre, Parry has been working on other projects for years, including a series of solo records released under the banner Quiet River of Dust. Volume 1 of that series was released on the autumn equinox of 2018, while the most recent, Volume 2, That Side of the River, arrived on the summer solstice of 2019 via Secret City Records in Canada and around the world via Anti Records. Richard and I had a talk recently about the themes and motifs on Quiet River of Dust. The folk music his mother and late father immersed him in as a young man, his interest in the natural world and his philosophical outlook on life, his collaborative friendship with Dallas Good of the Sadies, and the significance of the Dawson City Music Festival and Hillside Festival on that relationship, future plans for Bell Orchestre and Arcade Fire, and much more. With the support of listeners like you who subscribe to this podcast and spread the word about it, and make flexible monthly donations at patreon.com/creativecontrol, plus in-kind support from CFRU 93.3 FM, Pizza Trokadero, The Bookshelf, and Planet Bean Coffee in Guelph, and Grandad's Donuts in Hamilton. This is the 485th episode of Creative Control, featuring the very talented Richard Reed Parry, with your host, me, Vish Khanna. Hi, Richard. How are you?
Hey, I'm good. How's it going, Vish?
It's not bad. It's not bad. First of all, where in the world are you? I hear birds chirping, so it sounds nice. Where are you?
Montreal. Home. On my back porch.
Oh, nice. Okay. I wasn't sure if you were on tour or what. You've been busy lately.
No. Been busy, yeah, but busy in a non-touring kind of way, which suits me real well.
Well, it's nice to chat with you. I don't remember the last time we spoke. It's been a while.
It has been a while, yeah. Maybe at a Hillside Festival a couple of years back.
That might be it. Yeah, you're returning to the Hillside Festival in Guelph, and that's cool. I want to commend you on your new record,
thank you.
Quiet River of Dust Volume 2. Did I say that correctly?
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
That's right.
I want to begin by just asking you about this imagery in the title, A Quiet River of Dust. It just strikes me that that's poetic, it's evocative. Where did that come from?
It actually came from, it was just the name of a temporary working title that I gave to one of the songs that eventually became the album. And it just kind of stuck as a name for the whole project. Yeah, it just kind of felt like it talked about all the things that the songs were talking about, kind of nature and solitude, but then also like kind of tradition and river as this metaphor of tradition, and then river of dust as this kind of analogy for just the eternal cycles of nature and people kind of springing up and then dissolving back into the earth and springing back up out of the earth and dissolving back into the earth in this kind of endless cycle of nature recycling itself and reforming itself in a million different ways eternally.
Yeah.
And then also the kind of, there's a bit of like a sort of farewell ceremony, kind of an image that related to kind of throwing ashes into the sea or something, or into a river, and watching those go out into the sea and then be absorbed up into the clouds and raining back down onto the land and back out to sea. That kind of image, it all felt like very, very intrinsically connected to me with that title.
Yeah, a lot of cyclical stuff in what you're describing there. I couldn't help but think of sort of climate change issues within that title as well.
Sure, that's in there as well.
Yeah, as we're speaking, I just read a report that the 6th largest city in India ran out of water. And so these things are happening. They're happening rapidly, and so when I think of that title, River of Dust, I mean that might be the kinds of rivers we're in for.
Sure.
And maybe
that's in there as well. You know, human fragility and the fragility of the natural world, and also the just the transformation of everything into everything. You know, be that from a calm functioning world into a disastrous one that functions less well, or just a new version of the old one, or whatever that might be. All feels like it's all very connected to me.
Are you commenting on that per se? Whoa, what is that? What?
Oh, sorry.
Was that water? Was that water on cue?
There was water on cue.
The water heard us talking about it and was like, "No, I'm here. Everything's fine. Just relax." No, sorry. Are you? I understand that it's intrinsically a part of these songs and maybe what inspired you, but are you commenting on that per se within this material, on the fleeting nature of life and also ecologically, our ecological existence? Are you commenting on that?
I mean, it really is all one and the same to me. I think you can't sing about you can't sing about being out in the natural world or out in the ocean and feeling the particles of your body dissolving into the world around you without it having an obvious direct relationship to all of those things, but I'm not trying to make a topical climate change album, but nor can one avoid thinking about climate change when one is, thinking about the natural environment or just even experiencing the natural environment. It's all the same. It's all the same world, and being super overtly connected to that speaks to feeling that connection and feeling any changes that are happening and feeling the massive destruction and the infinite calm that all exists, simultaneously and cyclically, and how within and without of our control all of that is as well.
Well, you've touched upon it in various ways already, but I wonder if it might be useful for those listening to hear from you about the real inspiration behind these motifs and this record. There is a lot of nature imagery. By the way, and I heard you trying to clarify that I did not intend to make a climate change record, and I didn't mean to take us too far down that river of dust, if you will. But that stuff is in the songs. I'm there's oceans and shorelines, and the natural world really comes through. So I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about the inspiration behind this volume and this. This is the second volume. There's something going on in terms of connecting your works here. So do you mind maybe articulating that?
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing really aims to envelop the listener as it enveloped me while I was in it and making it, and I'm still in it and still making it. In fact, it's volume 3 is well underway already. I've recorded some of it already and written loads of it, and I think it's probably ultimately a 4-part cycle, but we'll see. I'm in the middle of volume 3, so that's officially happening.
Well, good for you. You say 4-part cycle, and I don't mean to interrupt here, but that corresponds with the seasons, does it not?
It does, yeah.
Yeah.
But I'll cross that bridge when I get to it. But that's,
sorry to interject. It occurred to me.
Fine.
Yeah, I know there's a seasonal connection between these first 2 releases. So when you said 4, I gathered that's where you were heading. Yeah,
that's where it seems to be heading. But I didn't want to bite off more than I could chew. I thought I would just deal with two first and see what happened. And 3 is definitely has already started to form itself, so it seems very likely it's all gonna happen.
You don't want to end up in a Sufjan Stevens 50 States album situation, is what you're saying. Maybe.
I don't know, but that was a really big bite to chew on that he said himself. Yeah,
he got to 2.
Yeah, but really good albums though. So that's
fantastic albums. Yeah. No disparagement on my old friend Sufjan, but I do think that was just interesting that he's like, "Yeah, I'm going to make 50," and like, no, and you seem to have the same like, "Can I make 4 of these?"
I mean, I think he could have done it if he had less attention to quality control.
Yes,
but but he does have a very big, beautiful attention to quality control. So
there's an interesting relationship between ambition and your muse. Like you have an idea, and then actually execute these grand ideas is a bit harder than you think. Yeah.
No, I think in theory he would love to do that and love to have the time to do that. And
of course. Yeah.
And that would be a great thing.
Well, maybe he'll follow your lead and pick something a bit more manageable. 4 is a bit more manageable.
We'll see. Talk to me when I'm trying to mix Volume 3.
Well, you're 3/4 of the way done, it sounds like almost
no, I'm like maybe a quarter of the way in. Maybe.
Okay. I didn't mean to interrupt. Can we let's get back to the inspiration behind this series, if you will. What inspired it?
Yeah, so, I mean, all of the above that we've already been talking about, like a really direct, sort of immersive connection with nature, I guess, a connection that feels thorough and overwhelming at times, perhaps, and just deeply intrinsically connected at other times. But then also the kind of growing up and processing the community that I grew up in. I grew up in this real folk music community in Toronto. There's kind of a lot of expat British Isles singers and folk musicians. And so I just grew up completely immersed in this folk music environment and was sort of dragged around to all the festivals when I was little that my dad would be playing at, and kind of falling asleep on the floor of the folk club every week. And so just really grew up utterly immersed in that. And at a certain point, when my father died and when I left home, had this real kind of, awakening, I guess, transformation of the world in which I lived, which sort of stopped, transformed from being this kind of cultural village of sorts that I'd grown up in, and just became the world that it is, I guess. And so this real sense of having left behind this kind of floating world of childhood and this particular musical bubble in which I was raised.
I'm sad to hear of your loss. First of all, would we know who your father was by name?
Yeah, I mean, his name was David Parry, and he was in a kind of quietly legendary Canadian folk group called the Friends of Fiddler's Green that played all over Canada, all over the folk circuit for ages, really, all of my childhood.
Right. And based on a lyric on this new album, did you lose him when you were 17?
I did, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that is, again, I can't fathom that. And
happens at one point or another, and that's when it happened.
It does. And this changed you. Can you go into that? Can you? And these records kind of reflect that change, that new world that you entered into with this loss. Can you describe that?
I mean, I think the records try and just like give space to that and create like a kind of a world for those feelings and that experience to live in, but without trying to like actually like the album isn't like trying to put that into words or something. It's more just, you're asking me about the inspiration and the kind of creative jumping off point, and I'm really a leap before you look kind of musician composer.
Yeah.
And so really like the songs just wrote themselves over time, and I wasn't trying to make an album, and I wasn't trying to talk about an experience specifically in a conscious, like thought out kind of way, it's more like I make music. It's like, that is what I do. I find myself making music. If I sit down and there's an instrument around and there's some quiet and no one's trying to distract me, like there's a really good chance I'll make some music. And that's how both these records were made. This whole kind of art piece started to evolve. And at a certain point, the songs just kind of define themselves and start to be about certain things. But for me, it's a very just sing it first and think about what it means later kind of process. And so it was more like I found myself already very far along on albums that seemed to be about this certain world that was a hard to explain and hard to articulate thing, which I think is why it slowly turns into music, you know.
Yeah, I hear you carefully avoiding any pigeonholing of themes and concepts on the record, because it sounds to me that, like you say, they kind of came to you, and maybe you're still processing what they mean.
Yeah, and it's just like it feels wide open to me. It feels like I know these kind of places within myself and within my mind and my heart that are the feelings that the music draws on, but it's hard to know exactly where those come from. But you just kind of feel all these points of connection within your own life, but then also within your day-to-day experience of being out in the world. It's like the experience for that song, I Was in the World, Was the World in Me. That's the final song on Volume 1. Like, that's literally about being out in nature, you know, being like floating in water or walking in a forest and being utterly overcome by the, you know, just the kind of physical beauty or the energetic beauty or just the kind of blissful nature of being out in such an environment. But then also within that moment, feeling the potential for, you know, feeling the inevitable one day my actual body is going to actually dissolve and become the environment that I'm having a blissful experience in right now, you know, and just the weird existential deep terror, and then also the deep kind of Zen okayness of, yep, that is correct. Like, you're having a blissful moment being in a lake, and one day your body is actually going to dissolve and become particles that are maybe going to end up in this lake, you know, and the great cosmic oneness of all of that, and how staggering and utterly normal that is all at the same time. And it's like, that's as much of an inspiration for these records, and it's all as anything else, you know, as anything from my own life, you know, more like these huge cyclical natural cycles, you know, the earth opening up and swallowing us whole kind of.
It's not everyone has these sort of philosophical perspectives, reasonable perspectives on how life works. I mean, you're someone who's traveled the world. I'm guessing you're getting close to pushing 40 by now, right?
Yeah, I'm 40, 41, 40 or 41.
Same age. So you and I are the same age, and I've had the same reflective time in my life where, you know, I have kids coming up, parents getting older. So I realize I'm in the middle of, I'm contemplating mortality more, but it sounds to me, and I'm maybe reaching here, you've had to confront these kinds of ideas since probably when you lost your father, if not earlier. Is that fair to say?
Sure, yeah. But I mean, I think it's like those things are all there waiting for us to confront, you know, and we all confront them, and it's just a matter of time and space when that happens, you know.
Yeah. No, it's fair. That's fair. I don't think a lot of us dwell on it or think about it too much, because it's not fun to think
or
about.
It is.
Or maybe it does. That's true, doesn't it? You could either, I think I've had that. I've clung to the concept of like, I need to live this life, but you also end up at some point letting go and realizing this is going to happen to everyone, like you said.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, we're all in the same soup.
Exactly. Speaking of which, you kind of alluded to the fact that you grew up in Toronto and you were immersed in music because of your father. And I want to go down that path a little bit, but you've also talked about nature.
And my mom as well. It was my dad who passed, but both my parents were big, you know, deeply immersed in the folk music and the folk scene, and both of them played and sang music and performed and used to perform together and sing together, and we sang a lot as a family, and it was really just really all around me on all sides.
Right. Okay. So there's two things I want to get to. One is, and I'll do them separately. One is your immersion in nature as a person growing up in Toronto, and where that came from, whether your family went on camping trips or explored the wilderness. But I want to, before we get to that, the music stuff, when did it occur to you, do you remember in your upbringing when it occurred to you that music might be something you could make? I assume if your parents are always making it and working on music, that you realize that that's an entry point that you could explore. But at the same time, you know, some of us grew up rejecting our parents' interests. You seem to have immersed yourself in it. Can you talk about that? How did that happen?
I don't don't know how that happened per se, because it wasn't a conscious decision at any point. I can say in all honesty, I was never like, I am going to be a musician. I'm going to be a professional musician. I'm going to, do all these different musical things that I do. I'm going to play in bands. I'm going to compose. I'm going to, do solo records and all of these things that I do weren't a plan that was like, I think I could do that, and then start methodically moving towards that, and being happy when something went right and being sad if something didn't go right. Like, it really all just seems to happen for me. It just kind of rolls out. I just find myself in music, gravitating towards music, seeing music, listening to music, absorbing music, wanting to write music that sounds like X or Y. That part of it becomes conscious. Ooh, I want to try and work this kind of idea into something. But most of it ended up becoming a musician and becoming a professional musician and having, a band that was insanely successful. All of that was like really just sort of happened, and not like randomly, because it was all stuff it was just like the only focus of my life I've ever really had was wanting to be immersed in music, and I find myself being immersed in music. So in a certain way that was conscious and premeditated. In a certain way it just feels like I didn't know how to do anything else.
Sure, but do you remember how you started? Like, was it seeing your parents? Was it hearing another artist?
We just grew up singing. Like, I grew up with no television. We grew up like we would sing together. Like, my dad knew like hundreds and hundreds of songs to be able to, from all over the British Isles, and he'd sing them from memory, and we would just hear that growing up. And then his band would play, and we'd all hear those songs, and we'd play all those songs. Those were mostly traditional folk songs, also like mostly British Isles stuff. And then after the show was done, everyone would stay and sing, and like sing at the pub, or sing on a New Year's Eve, or on a birthday party, or whatever. Like, music was just around, and in a way that is hard for it's hard for me to understand, let alone most people around me who didn't grow up in that kind of an environment.
Yeah.
Music was just something that was happening, and that you lived. And, I'd be at the grocery store with my dad, and he would just like we burst into song, and I would be kind of mortified when I was really little, and then I just got used to it after a while. And
I do the same thing. My daughter's like, "No, Papa, stop."
Yeah, there you go. Yeah,
it's coursing through me, and it comes out when it shouldn't. It's almost involuntary.
Yeah, well, that's kind of what music is. It's a force, and you only have so much control over it.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was just kind of the reality. And so you just find yourself then kind of writing little songs in your head, or gravitating towards making music. Or I started playing piano when I was little, and then took, various little stints of lessons. I was never like a studious musician in terms of playing. I was never like someone who sat there and practiced the same thing over and over again. And in fact, quite the opposite. It was really hard to get me to sit and practice, but I just loved exploring music in all sorts of different ways. And I would have piano lessons and end up not really sight reading and inventing parts where I heard them and things like this.
So it was piano that got you playing.
Yeah, piano is what got me playing. Yeah, for sure.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Okay, so that helps. Thank you for that. I want to talk about. By the way, this is not an interrogation. I'm just making.
No, that's fine.
I'm kind of making small talk, and but I don't know this. You and I have known each other since 2002, and I don't think we've ever had this kind of background conversation.
Yeah.
So
that's true.
yeah. So that explains that. Now the nature stuff. These records are really immersed in the outdoor world. It feels to me. Where does that interest come from? Like I was trying to frame it earlier, did you do a lot of camping, hiking? Were you that kind of family?
Yeah, I went to summer camp. Like every summer, as long as I could remember, like from kind of age 0 to 16 or 17, probably. And then we would also, I think our family just kind of gravitated towards countryside and outdoors. And we never had a cottage or anything like that. And actually weirdly weren't big campers, but we would go to summer camps. My mom would always come with us, and it was just kind of a family thing. And I don't know where it comes from. You just plant the seed for that kind of thing, and it just kind of takes its own course,
Okay. So it's not like you were a botanist or something. You know,
No.
you're as immersed in the outside world as any of us on some level.
Maybe more on some level, but hard to know exactly. People have a wide range of experiences with these things.
Can you start a fire? If you were
I
camping,
can start a fire. I'm
good
at starting fires.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. That's the key thing. I want to know if we go camping ever that that'll be taken care of, because that's
that will be taken care of.
So
you're safe with me.
So there, I'll try to be careful with this, because again, I don't want to pigeonhole anything here. And for those who haven't heard it, this new record in particular, I will say that it seems to me that the production and the tones have an ambient or atmospheric quality, whatever those terms might mean to someone.
Sure.
But in the context of what you're singing about, I couldn't help but feel like he's kind of trying to capture the vibe of the external world. Like you're trying to, that's my feeling, is that you're tapping into this sort of white noise maybe, or just this feeling of being kind of immersed in something. And I wonder if is that purposeful? Are you trying to kind of capture that vibe?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely gravitate towards, like, within the context of this music, like I gravitate towards certain kinds of sounds that are, I don't want to say softer exactly, because I also like it to be not afraid to bust out and go wherever it wants to go at any time, but definitely, like, it's on the softer end of sounds sometimes, like compared to rock music, for example. It's like there's not a lot of snare drums. There's not a lot of like loud cymbals, or it's like I actually wanted to make music that could be listened to very, very loudly and would still feel soft, so that you could just you could kind of blast it and immerse yourself in it, and it never feel harsh or like it would tire out your ears or it would be too loud or take your head off, you know.
That's a kind of a trend right now. Are you following, or are you immersed in this ASMR stuff?
I'm not. I mean, I'm glad that it's happening. I'm like aware that it's happening, and I'm doing my own experiments with it. And I'm glad that that's happening, because I feel like that's a useful place for music to go, and for sound to go, and for people's attention spans to go. I feel like it's a very net positive thing, the ASMR trend, if you will.
Hushed tones, whispering. I feel
like... Yeah, I love it.
I kind of wish this was... I don't mean the actual whispering and hushed tones necessarily, but I'm hoping it leads to a trend where sound is mixed lower. Because there's been a loudness war that's been going on since the invention of the earbud and the MP3, where I don't know what's going on, but everything's louder than it needs to be. And again, it's hard not to sound like an old man, but I really think it's true. And so I wonder if that's going to lead to that. If this trend is going to lead to that.
Yeah, I mean, definitely staking out more of a foothold in popular culture for there to be, a big place for quiet music that's not just background kind of dentist's office ambient, and like I grew up in the 90s as a teenager, and so like definitely I would like the kind of ambient chill out room, the really good creative side of that kind of ambient chill out room culture definitely influenced this music a lot. Like the Live Orb 93, that record that the Orb put out in the 90s, well, in 93, I guess. Maybe they put it out in 94, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
That record is like as big of an influence on Quiet River as anything, I would say. It's like where they were just like letting the sounds of the natural world in and letting there be some kind of gently chaotic natural sounds, natural energies make their way into the music that was otherwise, this kind of ambient techno genre, for lack of better terminology, but they really let that open up and be a really creative, interesting, unique thing. And that kind of spirit and like kind of inviting the chaos in definitely really appeals to me a lot, and I would say has influenced Quiet River a lot.
Okay, well, in terms of inviting elements into your world, by the way, what's going on? Are you camping right now? There's a lot of clattering and. What are you building? Are you building something?
I'm in my garden. I'm actually moving planters around.
There you go. Okay, so you're outside. You're just this is a very literal interview. You're in the outside world, immersed in soil and whatnot, and I
mint plants. Yeah.
I was going to ask about inviting people into this world of yours. Before we maybe get to listeners, who have you collaborated with? I hear different voices throughout this record beyond your own, and I wonder if you can talk about anyone that was a part of this this project, and even, I guess, as you bring it to people in a live setting, who you're working with. Is it possible for you to do that?
Yeah, I mean, on the album, there's lots of different musical guests, people that are... I mostly try and just work with dear friends and musical relations, musical comrades that I love. It's not like a... it's not like a celebrity guest stars kind of vibe.
Sure.
But really stuff that's born out of like a natural musical collaborations. So on volume 2, like my friend Dallas Good from the Sadies sings and plays on one of the songs that actually is a song we kind of wrote together.
What song is it?
That's called In a Moment.
Right. Now, I ask because the last time you were in Guelph and we spoke, probably at the Hillside Festival, you collaborated with Dallas on stage.
Yes, there was that song that we played at that time.
There you go.
That song ended up on volume 2 of this record. So.
Okay, cool. And
there
now,
you go.
What was that, 5 years ago? I don't know how long ago that was.
Probably.
Yeah,
probably.
6 years ago.
4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Yeah, there you go. Time flies.
So, okay, Dallas, that's great.
Yeah, so we had written that song at that time, and now it is out on a record.
How do you know Dallas, by the way?
We met in Dawson City at the Dawson City Music Festival, and we got thrown onto stage together and had to, in folk festival fashion.
They do a very unique workshop up there where it's a potluck. You're just sort of thrown in with
that's
names.
What we did. Yeah. So it was potluck. It was me and Dallas and Jordy Gordon and Bobby Boulat.
Nice.
And we quickly scrounged up an Everly Brothers song to perform. We'd sing All I Have to Do Is Dream by the Everly Brothers, but didn't really play it till we got on stage. We kind of practiced a little vocal harmony, and we're like, okay, that's what we're going to do. We're going to kind of play it like kind of dub spiritualized kind of vibe and see what happens. And it was one of the best performing experiences of my entire life, where like utterly unrehearsed, we just like pulled off this really magic moment that kind of shocked us as much as anybody around us, I think.
It's weird, right? They give you like 2 hours or something to come up. I did one of those. I did one in the formation, and I was like, well, let's just do Empire State of Mind by Jay-Z. And they were like, what? And I'm like, yeah, I know all the words. Let's just do it. And we did it, and it was fine.
Amazing.
So, and I've seen some magical things. I've only been there once. It is amazing how musicians converse in such a short amount of time, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah, so you met Dallas there, and then that led to writing an actual song. Dallas is a friend of mine and a wonderful collaborator. He's always very open to collaborating with people.
He's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, we just really, really hit it off, and we're like, both of us, after performing that Everly Brothers song, and I think we just like, our voices kind of worked together in a really nice way, and we both were just like quite taken aback in a way of like how something could have come together that quickly and felt so good. And we were like, let's do a thing. Let's make I was in a really actively obsessive period about the Everly Brothers at that moment. So I was like, let's make an Everly Brothers type thing, like just 2-part harmonies the whole time. And let's just do that. And he was excited about that. And we've been like, it's the most slow musical project I've ever cultivated in my life. We've been working on it since then, very slowly. Like we get together for between like 2 and 5 days a year and slowly make progress on this thing. But both of us really love it, and we've got like 2/3 of an album, and we just need like another 2 weeks, and we'd have a really cool album. And we've been working on it for just ages now.
Nice.
Which seems so absurd, but it's just the speed at which it happens, and both of our lives are so
both busy musicians, both busy musicians.
Super busy musicians, yeah. So it just kind of, we take it where we can get it, but we both really love it, and it's everything that we've recorded is really special.
Okay, cool. And so anybody else you want to cite?
Oh yeah, sorry, went down a rabbit hole there. Yeah, I mean, This record, I'm just trying to think of Volume 2 versus Volume 1. My friend Amadeo from the band Blonde Redhead plays on a song with me.
Oh, cool.
My friend Nico Muley, the composer, plays
Nice.
on a song. Yeah, and then one of my longtime deepest collaborators, who's also my life partner, is Laurel Sprengelmeyer, who's known as Little Scream. She's all over both of these records. And then Aaron Dessner from the National played a heavy hand in these records. Also, he was really like a collaborator and an instigator from day one on this record. He was really, I don't know if I would have finished it. Him and Bryce, his brother, both, I don't know if I would have made or finished these records without those guys. They really were super, super encouraging of me to do these.
Nice.
And to kind of finish the songs that they knew existed. And yeah, just really, really big part of the team, as it were.
Okay, cool. So
Yeah.
anybody else, or is that... Are there samples on it, by the way?
Samples?
I thought I heard some voices that sounded a bit samply, but perhaps they're just some of your guests.
By sample other people, you mean?
I thought so, yeah.
No. I recorded everything that's on the album.
Okay.
There's samples between songs, if you want to call it that. I recorded. Well, so the Friends of Fiddler's Green, my dad's old band, are also on the album on Volume 1 more than on Volume 2. But then three of them play the intro to Volume 2, the first piece. But I recorded them singing on one song and playing on one song, and then transformed those recordings into another little fragmentary piece. So you could call that sampling in a way, but it's not really sampling. It's just rearranging a recording you've already made.
I see. Okay. I appreciate that insight. So will any of these people that you've just cited potentially be a part of Volume 3, or is that still unclear?
It just kind of assembles itself as it goes along. I rarely plan music. I just put one foot in front of the other and make what feels like it wants to be made at that time. And then once it starts being made, I adjust based on what feels like wants to happen next. And I perpetually follow my nose. So
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, one of the interesting aspects of this work is a 360-degree projection video. Am I saying that? Is that right? Did I get that right?
Yeah.
Is that? I don't know. I just saw 360. I added degree. That's why I'm cautious. Is it like an immersive 360-degree projection?
Well, yeah, we're performing live in a 360-degree room. We're kind of the bulk of the live shows for right now are going to be happening inside of domes, and we've created this. Like
the Sky Dome? Are you going to be at the Sky Dome?
No, more like a planetarium kind of vibe.
Okay.
Toronto sadly closed their planetarium, and it's still shuttered.
Oh, that's too bad.
In Toronto, we have in Montreal, we have this wonderful venue called the Sadisphere. That's the Société des Arts Technologiques, and they have this incredible dome it's kind of 8 projectors and 150 speakers, and it sounds super amazing in there and looks totally amazing. And so I've spent the last year and a half basically creating a environment, a surround immersive environment for both volumes of the music to be experienced inside of. So we set up and we play there live starting on Tuesday for 2 weeks during the Jazz Festival at Montreal. And we did the same thing for Volume 1 in November.
So as we're speaking, Tuesday, June 25th, right?
Yes.
Okay. So you've really made this an immersive thing. So the song
Yes.
And sorry, we didn't get to this. Who's in your live band?
So it's Laurel and Steph, who I didn't mention Steph, but he's in the band. So he's a deep collaborator, Steph Schneider, who originally I knew from Orchestre and have played with for many, many, many years. So Steph Schneider and Laurel Sprengelmeyer, who I mentioned, and then 2 of my high school bandmates, or post-high school, I guess, bandmates from Ottawa, Jordy Walker and Corwin Fox.
Nice.
I played in a band called Big Fishy Little Fish with them just after I graduated from high school in Ottawa.
Now, Corin's based in British Columbia, right?
He is, yeah, and Jordy's based in the Yukon, so it's a bit of a schlep to get them down here. But it also felt like they both worked on the record and helped produce it with me, different parts of it. They recorded and did lots of work, recorded and played and produced parts, and it just seemed like that's what I wanted to do, especially because they're two of my best friends and favorite musicians in the whole world. I just really wanted to spend more time with them and collaborate with them more, which is what we've been wanting to do since high school. And
nice.
Getting to work on the album together was such a joy that it just felt like, okay, has to be what happens. I didn't really think twice about it.
Well, I don't mean to highlight anyone in particular. I know Steph as well, but Cora and I met in BC and we made a record together, or like a single, and he was very sweet and very talented recording engineer as well.
Yeah, he's amazing.
Yeah,
remarkable creature.
All right, so you're gonna bring this band. You've got shows. You've got this. You'll do these projection video performances wherever you can. It sounds like, or is this a one-time thing in Montreal?
No, I mean, we did it in November in Montreal, and now we're doing it again. We're going to Hamburg to do it at a planetarium in Hamburg at the end of the summer. And it's getting booked kind of around the world in different places that have domes that can host it, because it takes a real specific kind of technical environment to be able to do it properly.
Right.
But when we can't do that, we just play the music and don't worry about the visual world.
Does this mean that the audience will be sitting, like you'll be in a circle and everyone will be sitting around you?
No, we're kind of on one side of the dome and everyone's lying back and
looking up at the ceiling.
Yeah, looking up. I mean, they can kind of look either up at forward at us, or up at the ceiling, or at the walls, and then you kind of spend your time switching between all of those things, because each vantage point has something special to offer.
Okay, cool. Well, we've covered. It seems to me we've covered your solo stuff rather well here in terms of what's coming up next. You're working on Volume 3. You have these shows. You mentioned Bell Orchestre there. Is that still a going concern in any way?
Yeah, we have a record for the first time. Like, we kind of took an accidental hiatus for 8 years or something. Just, once again, not really planned, just kind of putting one foot in front of the other. But a couple years back, we started getting together to record, just improvise and make music together like we always did, and have made a record that's actually really exciting, that we're not quite sure when it's going to come out, because just juggling life. But
oh, cool! It's totally done, but it's done.
Yeah, it's done. It's like in the can, and it's one big piece of music that never stops. It's really cool.
It's a single track.
It's one single track. It's the same tempo for 45 minutes. Yeah.
Okay.
Utterly unique thing.
Okay, that sounds very interesting. Yeah. And in terms of Arcade Fire, what are you up to there?
Nothing. We're on break for a while. We're on tour for a long time.
Right.
Until last fall, and then haven't really been around each other much since then, which is totally fine.
So, have I covered everything you're up to mostly? Is there anything else you want to talk about?
I mean, Bell Orchestre is playing at the end of this summer. We're going to be debuting the new record before it's out, with a couple of orchestras in Germany and Denmark. Okay. So that's quite exciting. So we're learning how to play that as well while I'm doing all this stuff. And what else? Yeah, I've always got a million things on the go. That record with Dallas really needs work. I'm doing a little bit of production work with the Sadies as they work on their next record.
Oh, cool. So you beyond the single song that we discussed that you wrote with Dallas and performed a few years ago, In a Moment, I believe it was. You're actually working on a collaborative record together?
Oh yeah. It's like 2/3 recorded already.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I guess I missed
a few more songs.
I see. I guess you did sort of say that. I thought you were referring to content for your solo stuff, but you're actually making. You have a
no. We're making a duo record. Yeah.
Does the project have a name?
Not really. It has a working title, but I'm not gonna.
Okay, I feel like I knew of it at one point. That's the only. I don't mean to be nosy, but I thought
We've never performed besides singing the one Quiet River song and playing together at Dawson City.
That's it. So, oh wow. Yeah. Okay, so it takes a festival to bring you together.
I guess so. Yeah,
So
evidence-based theory holds true.
everyone needs to book you and the Sadies, and you'll have magic at your festival. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, where can people go to learn more about you and this record? Where would you like to send people in terms of internet stuff?
You mean like to discover more about the album?
Well, some of us have social media platforms. Some of us have worldwide websites, that kind of thing.
Right. Yes. Gotcha. Yeah. I mean, there's a website for the music, which is my name, which is richardreedparry.com. But I'm on Instagram and Twitter and the Facebook and all of the things.
You say so rather sheepishly, I hear.
Well, it's just like a function of being a working artist. Like you have to.
Do you like it though?
Those things.
I've been having conversations with people who are like, "I'm done. I don't want to do that anymore." Are you okay with it?
I'm okay with it. I wish it didn't take so much time up and it wasn't all so finicky. It's like it's sort of fine in theory, but in practice, it kind of just ends up eating your time.
Yeah.
And then it's literally nothing at the end of the day. So I think it's something that inherently feels bad about the whole cyber world and virtual worlds that I'm not sure where we're going to go culturally with all that. But at some point in the process, perhaps at a very quiet level during the entire process of spending time online doing these things, I think anyone's psyche at some level recognizes that nothing is happening.
Right.
And
yeah. No,
I think that's going to catch up with us culturally, and I hope it catches up soon, like within a generation, kind of, because I think these things, when they're new, they're bright and shiny, and it's new and distracting, and people like to be distracted in new ways, and that is as humans have always been. But I hope at a certain point soon, the generation that grows up with their parents always being on Instagram is going to be like, you know what? This is not how I want to live. And then we'll maybe go back to a little more real life or something.
Yeah, I agree with you. I want the internet to crumble into dust on some level.
Indeed.
Aspects of it, yeah. Okay,
yeah.
Well, is there... And sorry, the record's out on Secret City, right?
Yeah, that's
right. Okay.
And in the U.S.
Right, okay. Now, is there a single song from the album that I can play for people? And if so, do you mind choosing it?
Why don't you play In a Moment? That's the single that we just released. That's the one that I sing with my friend Dallas.
And in terms of the lyricism or the writing of it, how did that work? Did one of you bring more to it and then the other?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I wrote it and we kind of worked on it together as a possible duo song, and then I decided it belonged in Quiet River World more than in our duo.
Okay.
But yeah, lyrically I wrote it, but he helped develop it, and collaboration is a fabulous thing.
Right, of course.
Everyone just brings what they bring, and you don't really want to look at it in black and white terms. But it was definitely something I wrote lyrically from a very specific perspective, and that perspective seemed like it really belonged in the world of this Volume 2 of Quiet River, so that's where it lives.
Do you want to say anything about the lyrical intent?
It's about keeping still, keeping deeply still, whilst having all manner of chaotic motion happening within oneself.
Okay.
And that kind of uses different forms of water to reflect different aspects of that. So, yeah, it's kind of someone singing to themselves, trying to talk sense into themselves in a way, about keeping still and chilling out, I guess, ultimately.
Okay, well, that's well put, and I appreciate that. This is In a Moment by Richard Reed Parry. Richie, it was really nice to catch up with you and talk to you, and I look forward to seeing you soon, and best of luck with everything going forward.
Likewise. Thanks, Beach. Nice to talk to you.
I could stay here, I could be still and be here still, slowly.
Very special thanks to my old pal, Richard Reed Parry, and thanks to you for also listening to Richard Reed Parry on this, the 485th episode of Creative Control, which is part of the Entertainment One podcast network and is available on all iOS and Android platforms, and also things I don't even know about. Spotify, YouTube, and Audio Boom. I know about those, but every time I look up the show, sometimes I look it up just to see where it is, where it's been, where it's going. There's all sorts of other things, but whatever you use, it should be there. If you listen to podcasts, Creative Control should be there. If it's not, drop me a line. I'll try to get it on the thing that you use, but I'm pretty sure it's on most of the things. But if you can't find an episode you're looking for, if you want to learn more about me and sign up for my regularly scheduled newsletter, please visit my website, vishkhanna.com. You can like Creative Control on Facebook, follow us on Twitter @VishCreative, or follow me directly @VishKhanna. Listen to a radio show version of Creative Control on Wednesdays at noon Eastern Standard Time around the world at CFRU.ca, or on an actual radio at 93.3 FM if you're in or near Guelph. Also, please visit patreon.com/Creative Control to make a flexible monthly donation to sustain this podcast financially. That's all there really is. So please, patreon.com/Creative Control to keep the show going. Speaking of keeping the show going in some ways, I'd like to thank Pizza Trokadero, The Bookshelf, Planet Bean Coffee, and Grandad's Donuts for their in-kind support of the show. Also, my old and dear friend Jim Guthrie lends me a song of his that I can use to end this show, and you can learn more about him at jimguthrie.org. And finally, I started right from the top thanking you, but I thank you one last time for listening to this show and spreading the word about it and telling your friends about it and subscribing to it on YouTube or whatever your podcast platform is. That means a lot as well. So thank you very much. I will talk to you soon. Bye for now.